I don't know how long I have to write this, or if anybody will even look for this post, but I need to make a record somewhere permanent in case they never find me. It's taken a long time to bring me back here, back to where this all started, so I will try and summarize things as best I can. Growing up, my family instilled in me a deep love for the outdoors. We did everything from hunting and fishing to snorkeling and diving in the ocean and lakes. We would always take trips every year all over the states, visiting the national forests, parks, and even some wild places off the beaten path. As I got older, at least once a year, my father would take me on a hunt deep in the wilderness. We would pick a place near home or out of state, pick our game of choice, and we would backpack our way through the rough terrain and dense forests in search of our prize. I really appreciated this time we got to spend together, and I learned a lot from him that would come to help me in ways I never knew. We would be miles deep into what seemed uncharted territory, and days from anything resembling civilization. If anything were to happen to us out there, we were completely on our own. So Dad made sure to teach me how to be ready for any number of situations. Basic survival skills, how to navigate even without a compass, first aid, and so forth. I remember feeling a bit overwhelmed by how much you prep just to go on a trek into the woods, but eventually it became second nature to me. I started to reflexively pack my things and plan accordingly, having spares and backups and plan A's and B's. I would feel as if I were walking without my left shoe if I was missing anything. Apart from preparedness and a decent set of skills that would put any Boy Scout to shame, Dad did teach me something far more important: a healthy respect for the wild. Our natural world is a thing of beauty, and there's some places that will take your breath away. Equally so, you can be breathless in awe and have your breath taken away in fear. There's always the dangers of wild animals, hazards of the terrain, but the worst of it all is what we don't know about. He said that's why we plan ahead like we do, because of the unknown, because too many go off into the dark never to be seen again, leaving nothing but unanswered questions as to why and how it could have happened with hardly a trace left behind. He wasn't superstitious, mind you, just overly cautious and protective. I treated the stories of missing persons as warnings to never underestimate the wild. I never thought I was arrogant or selfish to think, well, that won't be me, because we were always ready for anything. That was until Dad went missing. I was 25 at the time. We were out at our usual stretch of forest outside of our small town, about a day's hike in. It was a beautiful, flat wooded valley that had a mountainous backdrop. It was getting late, the sun going down, and we needed some more wood to get a fire going. Dad said he would go fetch some more branches from the stack we made at the edge of our camp. I'd only turned my back for a moment to get something out of my pack when I turned around and he was gone. The second I realized he was missing was like the world just froze. What I remember most was the quiet. The wind was still. Insect noises were now suddenly gone. No birds, no leaves rustling. Just the static-like absence of sound as if you paused your TV. The only sounds I could hear was the eerie echo of my voice calling for my dad and the pounding drum of my heartbeat. A once vibrant forest now felt so empty, you could hear a pin drop. His footsteps stopped just at the bundle of limbs and sticks we made at the tree line. Then nothing. No more tracks, no scrapes on the ground. He was just gone. My brain hurt. What was going on? How could he just disappear? Thankfully, I had a satellite phone to call out with, one valuable piece of our emergency kit. It was a gut-wrenching night alone, waiting for the cops to find me. Even though I knew help was on the way, I was in such a state of shock that sleep was impossible. I tried searching for him a little ways in, but found myself too afraid to venture far, so I spent the night gripping my rifle, eyes wide, staring at the walls of my tent, searching for any moving shadows or noises in the dark. The waiting silence was pure agony, yet nothing came. After the police arrived that morning, I was questioned, but it was settled quickly, and I was allowed to join the search party. We ended up with 200 volunteers altogether, and we combed through the forest at a snail's pace, looking for any trace of him. We searched for 3 days, but all we found in the end was his rifle leaned up against a tree. It was definitely his. I've cleaned that rifle and shot it myself dozens of times. The color and feel of the wooden stock, the wear and the dark metal, and the particular scope were all too familiar. That strangest part was that his rifle was 8 miles away from our camp. No animal tracks lead near it, no footprints or boot prints. Just the rifle by itself, fully loaded. So many questions rolled around in my mind, but nothing resembling an answer would fall into place. It puzzled the detective as well. He had similar cases before mine, but he admitted the lack of evidence was a first for him. He could offer no explanations, either that would satisfy. As you could imagine, that experience broke me in a way. I was left with a gaping wound in my soul, a void that I could not fill. It gnawed at me day after day, and I felt the only way I could fill it was to find out what happened to my dad. To find answers, something that might explain how an experienced woodsman just vanished. Perhaps we missed something, overlooked some piece of evidence that could only be found there in the forest. I spent several years regularly going back there, to that same campsite, in hopes of finding something, some trace left behind. I scanned through the area systematically, marking off points on a map to keep track, but I never found anything. Aside from a fruitless search, I never could truly immerse myself in it again. As nighttime would start to fall, I was already on my way back to my car and heading back to my apartment. My nerves just couldn't handle being there alone in the dark anymore. At first I went once a week, then once a month, then every other month. Now it's been 6 years since, and I eventually stopped looking. Guilt gently nags at me about having given up, but I guess I had exhausted all of the hollow logs, gopher holes, and animal tracks that might somehow be holding onto a piece of evidence. Yet I never found anything else out there. Nothing that pointed to where Dad had gone. So life went on. Not without the help of a few glasses from a local pub I frequent. One good thing to come out of it, I guess, was Derek. A local detective, Derek Wolf, was the one assigned to my case. While normally you wouldn't expect an officer to get too close to someone who was not just the victim, but the only suspect, he was surprisingly empathetic. He was diligent too, and he kept me informed on all the steps they were taking along the way. I'm not sure if he did so at the time, because he was suspicious, and hoped that I might flinch, that my mask might falter at some point, or he was genuinely trying to keep me a part of the process. We somehow became friends in a way. Even after his part on working, the case officially ended after a month. He felt personally unresolved. On his free time, he would sit and listen to me talk, offering the occasional advice or suggestion from his own experience in other cases. We would talk about them sometimes, thinking maybe some similarities might open a revelation to mine. It never did. We still keep in touch, a text or call now and then to ask how I am and chat. I know I give him the ever-revealing, "I'm fine" response almost every time, but I really do appreciate him asking. I started spending more time at the ocean instead, finding a sense of calm and peace among the salty breeze and the gentle waves of the sea. I wasn't without a few friends who had an equal love for the outdoors, as I did, who were a big help to me in working through my fears and guilt. Although I was a bit hesitant at first, we eventually began our own excursions anew, some day trips here and there, and eventually camping again. In some more open places than deep forest, and in places like national parks. I wasn't necessarily afraid to go back to what I once loved. Spending time in nature was still near and dear to me. After all, sharing in what me and my dad loved to do made me feel like I was close to him. Rather, I was heeding his old advice about respecting the unknown. I couldn't wrap my head around what happened to him, and how can you prepare for suddenly vanishing into thin air? It wasn't until a hike along a mountain trail that overlooked the old forest where I would finally stumble upon something I had lacked this whole time: perspective. The mountain trail was relatively nearby to the old forested area I searched through a few years ago. This peak I was climbing was the second peak furthest from the forest following the ridge. We never searched up here because it was so far away, but now, I wish we had. It was near the summit to an open plateau that I found it. I picked up on the trail again. At one point along the way, I noticed something odd sitting on a pile of stones. A watch. Not just any watch, my dad's old watch. I knew it was his by the brand, and the small engraving Mom had put inside the band for their anniversary. As if the find itself wasn't enough to make my heart skip a beat, the lost item added an even deeper impact. The watch had stopped working, the dial frozen on 8:43 p.m. The date counter was stuck as well, on the exact date he vanished. I couldn't believe it. It was impossible. There was no way it could be. This watch was nearly 40 miles away from that place, actually more if you take in changing elevation. How could he have traveled that far in just 2 hours on foot? I must have stood there, staring at the watch then, out to the horizon for nearly an hour myself, the flood of feelings and information, and every rational spilling over and over again in my mind, as I tried to reason on it. Eventually, I resumed my hike up the trail, now with a renewed heightened focus on finding clues once again. Anything and everything was under scrutiny to me now. It didn't take long to find something. There was a series of marks on several pines nearing the peak, as if clawed by a bear, or marked by antlers perhaps. Something sharp had marked the trunks of the trees long ago. The course of the marks were almost as if it was struggling to catch its prey, clawing its way through the trees. Stuck into one of the trees, where the marks ended, was a pocket knife, an old case knife. I recognized the painted bone-handle design immediately, and stuck in the fold of the blade was a bit of fur. I withdrew the knife from soft pine and held it gently in my hands. At last, the forest has revealed one of its secrets. A door finally unlocked in my mind, opening a line of thought with a new path to follow. He didn't just disappear. He was taken. Since then, things have taken a bit of a different turn for me now. Life had always moved forward in time, but it was a bit like walking through a dense fog or rain. I couldn't ever really plan ahead. Now my steps had purpose again. I'm on the trail again, my gear slung over my shoulder, clattering along to my marching steps. The forest has a tranquil quality in this afternoon glow, with the shades of orange light dancing between the branches and leaves in the breeze. Cell service hasn't quite gone out yet, as I just got a notification. It's from Derek. Dead Derek Wolf. Hey Ethan, wanted to give you an update on the new evidence you brought last month. Everything has been logged and the files updated. No DNA traces on the watch. Not surprising since it was in the elements for so long. The tuft of animal fur, however, was unknown. Rather, inconclusive. Normally the lab guys can match up almost anything with hair fibers, but they couldn't match it to any known animals or persons. I'm sorry it's not more definitive than that. Feel free to come by the station anytime to pick up your dad's things. If you need to talk, I'm here for you, bud. Me. Thanks, Derek, for everything. We'll see you soon. I set up my tent, unrolled my sleeping bag, and set my gear up. Found some dry tinder and got a fire going. My humble little camp was ready. The sun is setting with wisps of now pinkish purple light visible through the tree line. I sat down on my sleeping bag in my tent with the door unzipped. I have my rifle across my lap as I write this post. I hope you find this Derek. This time, I am ready, prepared for whatever answer dares speak itself from the darkness and reveal itself. The thing I've searched for these long years is very near. I can feel it. I know because the forest is silent. The air a crisp stillness without a single sound, except for a soft rustle of the underbrush in the tree line. It's here. Only now, there's two predators in these woods.